Hello readers, welcome back to Nutan's library. Now that we knew how to discern the vital few from the trivial many, we'll see how we can eliminate the trivial many. You see, it's not enough to simply determine which activities and efforts don't make the best possible contribution. You still have to actively eliminate those that do not. Once you have sufficiently explored your options, the question you should be asking yourself is not what of my list of competing priorities should I say yes to. Instead, ask the essential question, what will I say no to? This is the question that will uncover your true priorities. It is the question that will reveal the best path forward for your team. It is the question that will uncover your true purpose and help you make the highest level of contribution not only to your own goals but to the mission of your organization. It is that question that can deliver the rare and precious clarity necessary to achieve game-changing breakthroughs in your career and in your life. So, first elimination skill is clarify. Friends, motivation and cooperation deteriorate when there is a lack of purpose. If a team does not have clarity of goals and roles, problems will fester and multiply. When there is a high level of clarity, on the other hand, people thrive. When there is a lack of clarity, people waste time and energy on the trivial many. When they have sufficient levels of clarity, they are capable of greater breakthroughs and innovations, greater than people even realize they ought to have, in those areas that are truly vital. What happens when there is a lack of clarity and purpose? Number one, in our professional lives, when we don't have the clarity of purpose, we start playing politics. The team becomes overly focused on winning the attention of the manager. We do a similar thing in our personal lives as well. When we are unclear about our real purpose in life, in other words, when we don't have a clear sense of our goals, our aspirations, and our values, we make up our own social games. We waste time and energies on trying to look good in comparison to other people. We overvalue non-essentials like a nicer car or house, or even intangibles like the number of our followers on Twitter, or the way we look in our Facebook photos. As a result, we neglect activities that are truly essential, like spending time with our loved ones, or nurturing our spirit, or taking care of our health. Number two, with no clear direction, people pursue the things that advance their own short-term interests, with little awareness of how their activities contribute to, or in some cases, derail the long-term mission of the team as a whole. When individuals are involved in too many disparate activities, even good activities, they can fail to achieve their essential mission. One reason for this is that the activities don't work in concert, so they don't add up into a meaningful whole. So how do we achieve clarity of purpose in our teams and even our personal endeavors? Number one, decide on an essential intent. An essential intent is both inspirational and concrete, both meaningful and measurable. Done right, an essential intent is one decision that settles 1,000 later decisions. One strategic choice eliminates a universe of other options and maps a course for the next 5, 10, or even 20 years of your life. Once the big decision is made, all subsequent decisions come into better focus. Non-essentialist has a vague general vision or mission statement, has concrete quarterly objectives, but ones that fail to energize or inspire people to take their efforts to the next level, has a value set but no guiding principles for implementing them. Essentialists, on the other hand, have a strategy that is concrete and inspirational, have an intent that is both meaningful and memorable. Makes one decision that eliminates 1,000 later decisions. Number 2. Stop wordsmithing and start deciding. An essential intent doesn't have to be elegantly crafted. It's the substance, not the style, that counts. A true essential intent is one that guides your greater sense of purpose and helps you chart your life's path. Creating an essential intent is hard. It takes courage, insight, and foresight to see which activities and efforts will add up to your single highest point of contribution. It takes asking tough questions, making real trade-offs, and exercising serious discipline to cut out the competing priorities that distract us from our true opinion. Yet, it is worth the effort, because only with real clarity of purpose can people, teams, and organizations fully mobilize and achieve something truly excellent. Skill number 2. Dare to choose essential. Friends, learn to gracefully say no. The right no spoken at the right time can change the course of history. Courage is key to the process of elimination. Without courage, the disciplined pursuit of less is just lip service. Anyone can talk about the importance of focusing on the things that matter most, and many people do, but to see people who dare to live it is rare. We have good reasons to fear saying no. We worry we'll miss out on a great opportunity. We are scared of rocking the boat, stirring things up, burning bridges. We can't bear the thought of disappointing someone we respect and like. None of this makes us a bad person, you see. It's a natural part of being human. Yet, as hard as it can be to say no to someone, failing to do so can cause us to miss out on something far more important. So why is it so hard in the moment to dare to choose what is essential over what is non-essential? One simple answer is we are unclear about what is essential. Clarity about what is essential fuels us with the strength to say no to the non-essentials. Second is fear of social awkwardness. The fact is, we as humans are wired to want to get along with others. The very thought of saying no literally brings us physical discomfort. We feel guilty. We don't want to let someone down. We are worried about damaging the relationship. But these emotions muddle our clarity. They distract us from the reality of the fact that either we can say no and regret it for a few minutes, or we can say yes and regret it for days, weeks, months, or even years. The only way out of this trap is to learn to say no, firmly, resolutely, and yet gracefully. Because once we do, we find not only that our fears of disappointing or angering others were exaggerated, but that people actually respect us more. It is almost universally true that people respect and admire those with the courage of conviction to say no. We should strive to become a master of the art of the graceful no. Non-essentialists say yes because of feelings of social awkwardness and pressure. They say yes automatically, without thinking, often in pursuit of the rush one gets from having pleased someone. But essentialists know that after the rush comes the pang of regret. They know they will soon feel bullied and resentful, both at the other person and at themselves. Eventually, they will wake up to the unpleasant reality that something more important must now be sacrificed to accommodate this new commitment. Of course, the point is not to say no to all requests. The point is to say no to the non-essentials, so we can say yes to the things that really matter. It is to say no frequently and gracefully to everything but what is truly vital. Skill number 3, uncommit. Have you ever continued to invest time or effort in a non-essential project instead of cutting your losses? Have you ever continued to pour money into an investment that wasn't panning out instead of walking away? Have you ever kept plodding down a dead end because you could not admit, I shouldn't have pursued this direction in the first place? Ever been stuck in a cycle of throwing good money after bad? Friends, to uncommit, we don't have to get into these traps. Trap number 1, sunk cost bias. Sunk cost bias is the non-essentialist trap you need to watch out for. A non-essentialist can't break free of traps like these. An essentialist has the courage and confidence to admit his or her mistakes and uncommit, no matter the sunk costs. Sunk cost bias is the tendency to continue to invest time, money, or energy into something we know is a losing proposition, simply because we have already incurred or sunk a cost that cannot be recouped. But of course, this can easily become a vicious cycle. The more we invest, the more determined we become to see it through and see our investment pay off. The more we invest in something, the harder it is to let go. You see, a non-essentialist hates admitting to mistakes, whereas the essentialist is courageous enough to admit his or her mistakes and is comfortable with cutting losses. Trap number 2, the endowment effect. Friends, beware of the endowment effect. The endowment effect is basically our tendency to undervalue things that aren't ours and to overvalue things because we already own them. Whether or not you get any use or enjoyment out of them, subconsciously, the very fact that they are yours makes you value them more highly than you would if they didn't belong to you. When we feel we own an activity, it becomes harder to uncommit. There is a simple antidote to the endowment effect. Pretend you don't own it yet. Instead of asking how much I do value this item, we should ask, if I did not own this item, how much would I pay to obtain it? We can do the same for opportunities and commitment. Don't ask, how will I feel if I miss out on this opportunity? But rather, if I did not have this opportunity, how much would I be willing to sacrifice in order to obtain it? Similarly, we can ask, if I wasn't already involved in this project, how hard would I work to get on it? Number 3, get over the fear of waste. Friends, we've all been fed with don't waste rule since our childhood. It's natural not to want to let go of what we wasted on a bad choice. But when we don't, we doom ourselves to keep wasting even more. So admit failure to begin success, or else you would waste time and energy driving around in circles, getting nowhere, which is the epitome of a non-essential activity. Only when we admit we have made a mistake in committing to something can we make a mistake a part of our past. When we remain in denial, on the other hand, we continue to circle pointlessly. There should be no shame in admitting to a mistake. After all, we really are only admitting that we are now wiser than we once were. Number 4, stop trying to force a fit. Whether in our personal or professional lives, it is all too tempting to force something that is simply a mismatch. So what is the solution? When we get so emotionally hung up on trying to force something that is not the right fit, we can often benefit from a sounding board. Someone who is not emotionally involved in the situation and unaffected by the choice we make, can give us the permission to stop forcing something that is clearly not working out. The words of such a person could liberate you to stop investing in a non-essential. Number 5. Beware of the status quo bias. The tendency to continue doing something simply because we have always done it is sometimes called the status quo bias. It's all too easy to blindly accept and not bother to question commitments, simply because they have already been established. The cure is apply zero-based budgeting. Typically, when accountants allocate a budget, they use last year's budget as the baseline for the next year's projection. But with zero-based budgeting, they use zero as the baseline. In other words, every item in the proposed budget must be justified from scratch. While this takes more effort, it has many advantages. It efficiently allocates resources on the basis of needs rather than history. It detects exaggerated budget requests. It draws attention to obsolete operations, and it encourages people to be clearer in their purpose and how their expenses align to that project. You can apply zero-based budgeting to your own endeavors. Instead of trying to budget your time on the basis of existing commitments, assume that all bets are off. All previous commitments are gone. Then begin from scratch, asking which you would add today. You can do this with everything from the financial obligations you have to projects you are committed to, even relationships you are in. Every use of time, energy, or resources has to justify itself anew. If it no longer fits, eliminate it altogether. Number 6. Stop making casual commitments. Some people's days are full to the brim with soft commitments they have taken on unintentionally through an offhand comment or casual conversation they had somewhere with someone. If you do the same, from now on, pause before you speak. It might sound obvious, right? But pausing for just 5 seconds before offering your services can greatly reduce the possibility of making a commitment you'll regret. Number 7. Get over the fear of missing out. One of the obstacles to uncommitting ourselves from a present course is the fear of missing out on something great. To fight this fear, run a reverse pilot. In a reverse pilot, you test whether removing an initiative or activity will have any negative consequences. A reverse pilot can also be carried out in our social lives. Skill number 4. Edit. Clearly, editing, which involves the strict elimination of the trivial, unimportant, or irrelevant, is an essentialist craft. An editor is not merely someone who says no to things, nor does an editor simply eliminate. In fact, in a way, an editor actually adds. A good editor is someone who uses deliberate subtraction to actually add life to the ideas, setting, plot, and characters. Likewise, in life, discipline editing can help add to your level of contribution. It increases your ability to focus on and give energy to the things that really matter. It lends the most meaningful relationships and activities more space to blossom. Editing aids the effortless execution of the essentialist by removing anything distracting or unnecessary or awkward. Of course, editing also involves making trade-offs. It can be quite painful to eliminate passages, pages, or even chapters that took weeks, months, maybe even years to write in the first place. Yet, such disciplined elimination is critical to the craft. Of course, editing a film or a book or any other creative work is not the same as editing your life. In life, we don't have the luxury of revisiting a conversation we've just had, or a meeting we just led, or a presentation we just made and reworking it, red pen in hand. Nevertheless, 4 simple principles inherent in editing do apply to editing the non-essentials out of our lives. Number 1. Cut out options. When making decisions, deciding to cut options can be terrifying. But the truth is, it is the very essence of decision making. Number 2. Condense. Condensing means saying it as clearly and concisely as possible. In life, condensing allows us to do more with less. But to be clear, condensing doesn't mean doing more at once. It simply means less waste. We need to eliminate multiple meaningless activities and replace them with one very meaningful activity. Number 3. Correct. An editor's job is not just to cut or condense, but also to make something right. In our own professional or private lives, we can make course corrections by coming back to our core purpose. Having a clear overarching intent enables us to check ourselves, to regularly compare our activities or behaviors to a real intent. If they are incorrect, we can edit them. Number 4. Edit less. Friends, the best editors don't feel the need to change everything. They know that sometimes having the discipline to leave certain things exactly as they are is the best use of their editorial judgment. The best surgeon is not the one who makes the most incisions. Similarly, the best editors can sometimes be the least intrusive, the most restrained. A non-essentialist views editing as a discrete task to be performed only when things become overwhelming. But waiting too long to edit will force us to make major cuts, not always of our choosing. Editing our time and activities continuously allows us to make more minor but deliberate adjustments along the way. Becoming an essentialist means making cutting, condensing, and correcting a natural part of our daily routine, making editing a natural cadence in our lives. Skill number 5. Limit. Enjoy the freedom of setting boundaries. Friends, you need to draw boundaries. If you don't set boundaries, there won't be any. Or even worse, there will be boundaries, but they will be set by default or by another person instead of by design. Boundaries are a little like the walls of a sandcastle. The second we let one fall over, the rest of them come crashing down. It's true that setting boundaries can be hard. It's true that boundaries can come at a high price. However, not pushing back costs more. Non-essentialists tend to think of boundaries as constraints or limits, things that get in the way of their hyper-productive life. To a non-essentialist, setting boundaries is evidence of weakness. Thinks if you have limits, you'll be limited. Sees boundaries as constraining. If they are strong enough, they think they don't need boundaries. They can cope with it all. They can do it all. But without limits, they eventually become spread so thin that getting anything done becomes virtually impossible. Essentialists, on the other hand, see boundaries as empowering. Knows that if you have limits, you will become limitless. Sees boundaries as liberating. They recognize that boundaries protect their time from being hijacked and often free them from the burden of having to say no to things that further others' objectives instead of their own. They know that clear boundaries allow them to proactively eliminate the demands and encumbrances from others that distract them from the true essentials. Of course, the challenge of setting boundaries goes far beyond the workplace. In our personal lives too, there are some people who seem to know no boundaries when they make demands on our time. How often do you feel your Saturday or Sunday is being hijacked by someone else's agenda? Is there someone in your personal life who doesn't seem to sense when he or she is crossing the line? We all have some people in our lives who tend to be higher maintenance for us than others. These are the people who make their problem our problem. They distract us from our purpose. They care only about their own agendas. And if we let them, they prevent us from making our highest level of contribution by siphoning our time and energy off to activities that are essential to them, rather than those that are essential to us. So set the boundaries that protect you from other people's agendas. Number 1. Don't rob people of their problems. It's not that we should never help people. We should serve and love and make a difference in the lives of others, of course. But when people make their problem our problem, we aren't helping them. We are enabling them. Once we take their problem from them, all we are doing is taking away their ability to solve it. Whoever it is that's trying to siphon off your time and energies for their own purpose, the only solution is to put up fences. And not at the moment the request is made. You need to put up your fences well in advance, clearly demarcating what's off limits, so you can head off time wasters and boundary pushers at the pass. Remember, forcing these people to solve their own problems is equally beneficial for you and for them. Number 2. Remember, boundaries are a source of liberation. When we don't set clear boundaries in our lives, we can end up imprisoned by the limits others have set for us. When we have clear boundaries, on the other hand, we are free to select from the whole area or the whole range of options that we have deliberately chosen to explore. The simple reality is, if you can't articulate the boundaries to yourself and others, it may be unrealistic to expect other people to respect them or even figure them out. Number 3. Find your deal breakers. Make a list of your deal breaker, that is, the types of requests or activities from that person that you simply refuse to say yes to, unless they somehow overlap with your own priorities or agenda. Write down any time you feel violated or put upon by someone's request. It doesn't have to be in some extreme way for you to notice it. Even a small pinch that makes you feel even a twinge of resentment, whether it's an unwanted invitation, an unsolicited opportunity, or a request for a small favor, is a clue for discovering your own hidden boundaries. Number 4. Craft social contracts. Friends, work through a social contract. Simply having an understanding upfront about what we are really trying to achieve and what our boundaries are will keep us from wasting each other's time, saddling each other with burdensome requests and distracting each other from the things that are essential to us. With practice, enforcing your limits will become easier and easier.